All right, have and have not fans. This is the video I've been dying to do ever since the last episode came on. Now, as you know, I've posted on Twitter, I post on my Have and Have Not Facebook page, as well as several other Have and Have Not Facebook groups I'm a part of. I posted this picture with the question, honestly, do you feel sorry for Candace? Now, I've had there have been so many comments. I'm honestly overwhelmed by the amount of comments, emoji reactions to the actual post itself. And I've just read through some of the comments and I was blown away. But I just want to give a disclaimer that this is going to be kind of a long video. I don't mean to come off biased, but I'm going to try to back up my feelings towards Candace based off evidence we've seen in the series thus far. This is going to be, again, I want to talk about Quincy Jr. And again, I've talked about this in blogs and videos, but I feel like I need to break it down again in some aspects. So I'm going to talk about Candace as a character, Candace as a sister, mother, daughter, temptress, what have you, con artist. I want to talk about her reaction to her son's death, how I feel about it, and as the title suggests, and again, this might sound a bit harsh, but again, it has to be said, is Candace getting what she deserves? So we're almost at the 2-minute mark, so this is just a fair warning that I want you to kind of pause this video, just kind of relax. This is a video you can just listen to, just in the background. If you wanted to grab some snacks, because again, I feel like this is going to be like a video encyclopedia of Candace Young as a character. Like I said, I might say some things that might rub you the wrong way. If you're a Candace Young fan, I'm not saying I'm not a fan. Literally, I wouldn't be doing this video if I wasn't. I know that in today's world that haters are real. As Catwoman would say, haters are real. You need to be true, be one with your star player. This is one of those moments. This is me breaking down a character. So again, I already feel like there's going to be some hateful comments in the comment section below about me not understanding Candace as a character and this and that, and it's Hanna's fault. But I just wanted to give you this 2-minute disclaimer that this video might seem biased, but at the same time, I want to try to back it up with evidence from the series. Now, in my honest opinion, do I feel that Candace is getting what she deserves? Yes. Am I sad that her son had to pay the price? Yes. But should she be surprised this happened? Hell no. Because there have been plenty of opportunities in which she had to allow her son. I want to be honest, and I've even thought about this a lot. It's safe to say that if he was put into foster care, he would still be alive right now. It's almost that same situation with Amanda. If Jim had listened to Catherine and put Amanda into an institution, like insane asylum, if you want to say that, arguably enough, she would still be alive today. Same with Quincy Jr. If he was either put into foster care or given to Hanna, he would still be alive. And now to be fair, given the fact, and again, let me just start off with Candace's childhood, because a lot of people feel like I'm being, hateful towards Candace without looking at the facts. Let's be real. Hanna used to be what Candace is today. Because of her actions, one of her, escorts, so to speak, boyfriends molested Candace as a child. And because of that, Hanna kind of threw that to the wayside. That's not the case. If you remember the episode where Hanna went to the hotel room, the Sarandon, where Candace was with Oscar, but at the time it was Benny. What was it? It was after Amanda's death, and Hanna asked Benny to carry her to the hotel so she could talk with Candace. And it was the whole seeing the criers broken down over their daughter's death was like an awakening to Hanna. It's like, look, if we don't see each other again, I just want to say I love you. In terms of, pretty much atoning for her sin, so to speak. Candace grew up thinking that, look, it's your fault I got molested. You didn't even care when the police came to the school. You didn't come in. But Hanna said when Candace was being interrogated questioned by the cops at her school, Hanna was there trying to get into the room, but the cops wouldn't allow her in. So yes, what happened to Candace was indeed tragic. I am not trying to downplay that. I'm just saying that she grew up thinking the worst about Hanna when Hanna was indeed trying to change her ways. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we never really learned the exact time when Hanna became a Christian. But one could somewhat assume that after what happened with Candace, she began to see the error of her ways and began to change. Sadly, I feel that maybe, and again, I said this way back during last season, I said, will Quincy be the one who gets shot? And honestly enough, if he were the one to die, it would mean the most to the actual plot of the story. Sad to say, but his death would be the best thing to happen, because maybe that will be the thing to awaken Candace to try to live a better life, just like Hanna. Because again, we don't know for sure if Hanna became a Christian soon after the whole experience with Candace being molested, but one could say that the experience of that, seeing that how her lifestyle affected those around her, especially the ones she actually loves, that might have been an awakening point for her. So I'm thinking with Candace that in that moment when Hanna went to the hotel room to apologize, said that she loved her, to me, that was Hanna at her high point. That was her saying that, you know what, even though we can't stand each other, I love you because I saw what it's like for a mother to lose her child when she saw Catherine lose Amanda. So if I want to leave everything out on the table, so to me, that was my moment when I took my hat off to Hanna, because in a way, in a lot of ways, she does come off hypocritical and as a Christian who tries to beat her own values into other people. But in that moment, you have to admit that she sincerely tried to apologize to Candace and make a connection. That's my thing. That's what I keep trying to bring up to a lot of people, but most people feel like in my videos I'm being very harsh towards Candace. So in this moment, I want to say that yes, Hanna did mess up in the past, but she tried to rectify it. In that moment, Candace started to cry and asked her to leave. And then you fast forward to when they were in Candace's house. I think it was the same episode where Michael and then that attorney were there, because Candace was trying to get Benny to sue the Criers for the hit and run incident. And then next thing you know, I think Candace slapped Hanna, and then Hanna was like, what time is it? Okay, on this day at this time, I officially give up. You know, because my child struck me. So going to Quincy Jr., there are plenty of times even Erica was like, look, let your mother have custody. I have a child. They're with my parents because they don't like the way I'm living. But at the same time, they might say the worst about me to my child, but at least they're alive and well. I agree with Erica, what she said, but in Candace's perspective, and again, I'm giving credit to Candace, given the fact that she grew up with Hanna, put it this way, if you have and let's not even talk about, getting molested. Let's just talk about a family member. Like, let's say you have a father who's abusive and whatnot, and then when you're maybe a teenager or a young adult, they turn their life around to see God and whatnot. And then in adulthood, they try to act buddy-buddy with you, but you know how they, put it this way, if somebody leaves a bad enough put it this way, when you see somebody at their worst and then they treat you like trash, it's hard to see them it's like, even when they're right in front of your eyes and then they're a totally different person for the better, you don't want to see that. I mean, yes, that might sound spiteful, but if you've seen somebody at their worst and they treated you like nothing, it's nearly impossible to see them at their best, even when they're standing right in front of you. That's how I feel about Candace and Hanna. Because of what happened in the past, I'm not saying that, man, Candace is a baby, she needs to let things go. Given everything she's been through, I can see why she is the way she is. I really can. So even though Hanna did change for the better, yes, she does have flaws, but put it this way, as Candace is aware in her imperfections, I feel the same thing about Hanna. Hanna, as a Christian, is aware of her own faults, just as Candace is. I believe Tinka Sumter tweeted me this, or she tweeted this on Twitter. This was way back, like during season 2 or season 1. This was a beautiful tweet. I feel like she said, Candace finds her perfection in her imperfection. And I really like that. Pretty much, she's true to who she is. And I feel like Hanna is the same way. So those two are so much alike on the opposite ends of the spectrum. That's why it's hard for them to get along. Now, so again, we spent like the first 2 minutes with my disclaimer, then around the next 7 or 8 minutes talking about, Candace's past. Now let's kind of move a little bit forward into her love for her child. Remember that when she was pregnant, she had the baby. She pretty much had the baby and left. If I'm not mistaken, Hanna said that she raised, Quincy Jr. for the first 2 or 3 years of his life. Next thing you know, Candace comes back, takes the child, leaves, and then for 3+ years, Hanna doesn't even know where her grandchild is because that grandchild was her heart. Next thing you know, we flash forward to the end of season 2 where Candace comes back and reveals that, and again, I was actually shocked when this came up. It turns out that she actually tried to leave Quincy, but it was all about, some money? And if I'm not mistaken, she tried to get the money to save her son or something like that. Basically, it was a certain amount of money that Quincy wanted, and if Candace gave him the money, she would allow him to take their son and just leave. But turns out allegedly they went on a fishing trip because he loved to fish, and next thing you know, he pushed Quincy Jr. off a bridge and he died. That was the story he told Candace, and she legit believed it. So when she was crying, it was hard to believe it back when it first came out, that episode. But it turns out that yes, she did indeed love her son. And that kind of piggybacks off my next topic about Benny in terms of, when push come to shove, Candace will not straight up tell the truth. Like, when Hanna was like, look, if you tell the truth about those drugs in that car you got, Benny will get off the hook so he can get out of jail. She wouldn't do it. But she went directly to the source where she thought Jim was the one to set things up, but he didn't. But then she rushed up the stairs willing to throw everything away about the affair with Jim, and she told Catherine. Flash forward to season 2, when Benny was in the coma and he was almost, on his deathbed because that hospital he was at really wasn't doing much to help him. And then from that, she was willing to give up the rest of the money she had stored from Jim, abort the baby that she had. Remember, she pretended she was pregnant and said she would never bother Jim again. She was willing to give away everything she quote unquote worked for in order to save her brother. My thing with Candace is this. I feel like she is capable of love, but I feel like she loves her lifestyle more than anything else. But here's my thing. She is almost like a jacket. And again, you've heard this analogy before. It's like the rain jacket kind of thing. Whenever you need that jacket, you'll take it out the closet and wear it, and then you just throw it back in the corner and forget about it until you need it again. I feel like Candace treats her basically the people she loves, which is Benny and Quincy Jr. She likes having them around, but she loves running around and, just basically conning people. That's her lifestyle. But when it turns out she's about to lose those things she pretty much takes for granted, that's when she starts to come around in terms of, you know what, I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's really tough to see because it goes back to how her and Jim are pretty much two peas in a pod. It's like when Catherine told Jim after Amanda's death, like, you're just doing crocodile tears right now. It's like you're all sad and depressed, but tomorrow morning you're going to wake up, put on your I am an ass suit, slick back your hair with that gel, and then just walk around like nothing happened. I feel like Candace is the same way. It's like, there are people that have her heart, but she rather would live the lifestyle she lives. And again, her and Jim are so much, and again, put it this way, all roads in this show lead back to Jim and Candace from that initial opening of the door. And again, I mentioned this in a video I did about how Tyler Perry should do a pre-Have and Have Not movie where he talks about all these characters and how they met up and whatnot. I feel like the ending of that movie should be Candace knocking on the door and then Jim opening it up, and then that's the initial scene from episode 1 of the series. I feel like if you sat down and did a chart of every event in the haves and the have-nots, at some point or another, it's almost like, how the origin of man is Adam and Eve. The same thing applies to the haves and the have-nots. From when Candace and Jim first got it on in that hotel, that's where everything started in this show. And you look at how similar the two are. That's why Jim was attracted to Candace more than any other woman that he's been with, because I think he told David, it's like, I haven't had an escort in 9 or 10 years, I swear it. So the fact that Candace is different than the rest is almost like how Charles sees Candace, more like a challenge, almost like an equal of sorts. He sees a lot of himself in this woman. Now, when it comes down to Candace, you think about it. If I'm not mistaken, after she extorted the $7.4 million and bought the 2 houses in the tow company, she even said that she was looking forward to having her son so she would have a nice place for him to live. I think she said that. So honestly, she has a foul way of going about things, but it seemed that her heart was in the right place, so to speak, to give her son a good life. Almost like, how she bought the car, had Erica set Benny up to, pretty much get the car from her and then give it to Hanna, because she initially bought the car for Hanna, But she knew that Hanna wouldn't take it because, well, Hanna knows that she got the money through ill-gotten gains. So even though Candace is rough around the edges, in her own twisted way, she does have a way of showing affection for those she cares about. So given the fact that, Candace didn't want to have Hanna walk into the bus every day and bought the car, that was really sweet. So deep down, she does love her mom. I really do believe that, even though she, pretty much told people her mother died a long time ago. In episode 1, she even said that to Hannah's face when she was a maid, telling, Veronica that her mom died. So at the very core of it, I feel like those two, do love each. Hanna does love Candace. It's just that Candace has a very strange way of showing it herself. Okay, so pretty much we established Candace's past, how her and Jim are one and the same, how she does have affection for people, but I feel like she takes those people for granted. But when those people are either taken away from her or on the verge of dying, that's when she's ready to throw everything away, for them. But in Quincy Jr.'s case, unfortunately, it came too late. All right, now just give me one moment, please. I'm 16 minutes in and I really need a drink of water. I didn't know I'll be talking this long. I knew it would be a long video, but for it to be this long, it might be 30 minutes, honestly. So just excuse me, please. Okay, much better. Now, let's move on to the next point here. It goes down to the ending of the last episode where Candace broke down after finding out Quincy Jr. had died in the shootout. And she's like, what did I do? What did I do? And then in the preview for next week, she's on the phone with Hanna saying that you were supposed to protect him. You're the one who should be dead instead of him. And that goes back to this beautiful picture right here where I've said this at the beginning of the season where it's like, I cannot wait for this scene because this is my most viewed video on the channel. It's called Did Candace Really Love Her Son? And it's gotten over 100,000 hits. I was shocked. I didn't know that many people would want to watch that, but it's crazy. It's crazy. And in that video, that's where I got a lot of backlash from people saying I didn't understand Candace's character. But let's break it down here. When you think about it, I don't feel sorry for her. I do, but I don't. Here's why. Put it this way. I feel sorry for Candace, but I feel like she shouldn't blame anybody but herself. Here's why. Okay, now listen to me. When it comes down to it, Hanna said it best. After finding out that Quincy Jr. was alive, when Quincy Sr. came by with Quincy Jr. as bait, so to speak, in order for Hanna to tell Quincy where Candace was, but she literally did not know, and because of that, he took the boy with him because he literally said like, look, you glad to see him? Do you want to keep him? Well, tell me where Candace is. You can keep him, but Hanna legitimately didn't know. And then when, next thing you know, he slaps her in the face and then drives off. And then you think about it later on, it was around the same episode. I think it was Amanda's funeral. It's when Candace swung by the house and said she's going by the funeral. And Hannah's like, no, you're not. And what was it? It was when Catherine invited, Candace to the house, after the funeral to question her. And again, you could say what you want about Candace, you could say what you want about Hanna, but I feel like this bit of dialogue from Hanna sums it up. When Hanna said, instead of messing around with these folks, you should use your resources to find your son. I want to say it again. Hanna said, instead of messing around with these people trying to be all up in Jim and Catherine's face after their daughter died, you should be out there using those resources of yours on the street and finding your son. What was she doing instead? She was messing around with the criers. Next thing you know, she got bopped in the head with that bottle. Then next thing you know, she's going to New York with Oscar in that, private jet, going to the Mile High Club. And what was it? It was Benny bailing out Quincy from jail, flipping the truck, planting the drugs on him, and then eventually finding out where his nephew was. So you can say what you want about Candace in terms of, oh, well, you shouldn't be this harsh on her. That's her son and whatnot. But doesn't that go to show you that despite everything, even if she does legitimately love her son, she puts her lifestyle above everything else? I mean, yes, when her son got on the phone, it's like, Mommy, where are you? When he was in the hospital, yeah, she dropped everything and then, Oscar took her back to Georgia. But at the end of the day, Hannah's point right there trumps everything else. She legitimately said, if you really cared about that boy, you would use your resources to try to find him. Bet money, just like Oscar, if he got on his laptop, give him 5 minutes, he could find anybody in the world. With all of her underground connections, I'm pretty sure that Candace could have found her son. But guess what? She didn't do it. So you can comment below what you think. I am like a jerk trying to talk this bad about Candace. But at the end of the day, when she had the opportunity to be the mother for her son, she was not it. Honestly, Hanna would have been a better mother. Yes, I will admit she did not have the best circumstances for Quincy Jr. in terms of like a house, because remember, Quincy burned it down when he crashed the car in there. She didn't even have a job at the time. If I'm not mistaken, Catherine hadn't yet offered, her job back as a maid. Either she did or, some time was given off. Basically, there wasn't a steady income coming in at that moment. But at the same time, she would have been a good Christian mother. Yes, I feel like, to me, Quincy Jr. would have been a way for Hanna to redeem herself, to, make up for being a messed up mother to Candace. But given the fact that she had a rough past, which makes sense, Candace wasn't having it. And I can see why. I can see where she was coming from. But my thing is, same thing with Erica, when she's like, look, Warlock keeps coming in here on the regular. Do you really think it's a good idea for your son to be in here? The thing is, Candace's disdain for Hanna trumped her love for her son. She put her son's well-being under the rug, just swept it under the rug just to spite her mom. What really got me was when Candace pretty much humiliated her mom, when she dug in her purse and got every dime to her name. I think it was like a couple $100 to have custody of Quincy Jr. And then Candace just literally scuffed her nose at her. That was it. I was done. At that moment, I was like, you know what? I don't even care what happens at this point. It really does kind of hurt to even think about those moments like that, when your mom is like literally begging. She was begging to have custody of that child, and then you see what happens. Now, what got me, and again, this is the scene right here, this beautiful scene where, we have Candace holding her son in her lap while he's playing the video game. And then in the middle of the night, Candace Young pulled a Candace Young. She kissed her baby on the forehead and climbed out the window, and that was that. That was the last time she saw her son, because she did what she does best, which is just to say goodbye. And sadly, that's what got me in terms of, her wanting to blame Hanna, like, you were supposed to protect him. I wish you were dead instead of him. Are you freaking serious right now? Now, let's get to the main point. I made a video about, excuse me, let me get some more water. Okay. And this goes back to a video I did in terms of who's at fault for Quincy getting shot. And again, it's almost like a Sunday school lesson I learned when I was a kid, in terms of like when it came down to Jesus dying. It's like, whose fault was it? Was it Judas for betraying him? Was it Peter for denying him? Was it Pilate for letting the people speak? That was a lesson I learned when I was 10 years old, and it's so applicable to many things in life when it comes down to who's at fault for this happening. It's like the domino effect. Everybody played a role. You had Candace, of course, betraying Warlock. That's why he came after her. You had Hanna, who unknowingly led Warlock to where they were staying at. Because remember, Hanna went to Warlock to save her daughter. Remember, even though it was in a way her fault that Warlock found out where they were staying at, and that's where, the shootout occurred, she literally went into the wolves' den to try to save her daughter. Remember that. And that's when Warlock had one of his crew members follow Hanna, and then from there, that's how he figured out where they were staying at. Because remember that Erica was asking Candace what hotel she was at, but she wouldn't say. And it was up to the whole situation with Warlock having Hanna follow that he figured out where they were at. Then, of course, you have Mitch, who planted the drugs in Warlock's car. It's almost like everybody had a hand in this indirectly, where they thought they were doing something good, but it turned out to be bad. Think about it. Hanna went to try to protect her daughter, and because of that, Warlock figured out where they were staying. Mitch planted drugs in Warlock's car in order to get Warlock arrested, so he would stop taking advantage of Candace and threaten Benny. But then it turns out while he was in jail, and the worst part about it was, Candace went through all that between, forging the signatures, using the documents, getting that $2 million loan from the bank, and paying off Warlock, that they were back on good terms. But because Mitch tried to intervene, things got worse. Because when Warlock was in jail, he learned from Jim that Candace cheated him out of $7.4 million. So that was about what, like $3.7 million that he was entitled to, so to speak. And because of that, Jim let him out of jail in order to get back at Candace, and he just made things worse because letting Warlock out of jail meant that Warlock was free to go after Candace. And again, I can go on for days. Honestly, you can just keep going and going and going, but at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said before. All roads lead back to Jim and Candace in that one room. So there are so many fingers you can point. There are so many people you can point the finger at in terms of whose fault is it. But at the end of the day, it really is Candace's fault. Again, I'm not saying that other people didn't play a role in this, but remember, she's the one that lied to Warlock in the war room. She's the one that said, oh, it was $500,000. And remember, that was the reason he was pissed off to begin with. So she can try to blame Hanna all she wants. That would piss me off that she tried to blame Hanna for it. So I really hope that in that funeral scene in the funeral home, when Candace goes off, I hope Hanna goes in on her. Benny, stand back. Don't say anything. I don't want Benny in this because Benny is I want this to be a Hanna and Candace moment. Not necessarily a fight, but I just want to see them go back and forth. Because the way that Hanna gives that look to Candace, I'm pretty sure that, and I said this way back in the video where I said, does Candace really love her son? That Candace is going to say something that's going to tick Hanna off. Either going to direct the blame at Hanna or say that I don't know what I did to deserve this or something. And then Hannah's going to lay into her. So I really hope it goes down because Candace needs to be put in her place. So when Candace said, what did I do? That's why I don't have any sympathy. Because she's so quick to blame somebody else instead of taking a look at what she's done, the mistakes she's made, and then the people she does care about pay the price, then she's ready to take revenge on somebody when she needs to look right in the mirror. So the question of the video, do I feel sorry for is Candace getting what's coming to her? Yes. Do I feel like there's more on the way? Yeah. Look at Jim Cryer. Literally, those two are cut from the same mold. Look at everything that's happened to him and look at everything that's happened and happening to Candace right now. I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I just hope that people close to her in her life do not have to suffer the consequences of her actions. I do hope that in Quincy's death, there is new life for Candace in terms of her changing her ways. I really do hope that things change for the better. But for right now, I do not feel sorry for Candace. I do feel that in those moments where she was crying, it was powerful. And honestly, when she was crying, I saw more of Hanna in her in that moment. That's a sad thing to say, that in her pain, I really saw her mother. So instead of these two healing together, I feel like she's going to want to start another war instead of trying to be close with the family members she does have left. So with that being said, I want to cut this video to a close because trust and believe I could still keep going if I wanted to. But I just wanted to voice my thoughts, and I'm pretty sure that before next week, I might actually do a part 2 to this because I have so much to say. Or maybe I better just wait until I see the next episode before I talk more. But I just wanted to open up the conversation just like I did on Facebook. As I said before, these videos are pretty much the opening of the conversation, while the comment section is an extension of my thoughts in the video. Do you feel sorry for Candace? Do you feel she's getting what's coming to her? Who do you think is at fault for Quincy Jr.'s death? And I guess the main question is, will Candace change for the better given the fact that her son is now dead?